Welcome to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast.
Right, we're here for an episode of the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast. Today, Flawed and Foolish are always me and my cousin. A fantastic guest we have here is Davinder Singh Toor, who is the curator, and he's put together all sorts of stuff at the moment, which we're going to talk about, so I don't want to elaborate here. But before I start, thank you for coming and arranging time out of your busy schedule, because I know how busy it is. I appreciate you being here. I apologise for anything I might say wrong. If I offend you in any way, please let me know. But no, I'm just thankful you're here. For myself and my cousin, it's been, work in progress trying to get you here, because we know how busy you are. We both look up to what you've done and what you've got. And we just want the youth of today to appreciate what you've gone through in order to get to where you are today. And if those people want to do the same sort of thing, at least they'll know the steps they have to take. And we'd rather them bug you than bug us to see how they go. So,
no, I'm honoured, and it's really my privilege, and thanks for inviting me, and appreciate the opportunity. So no, wonderful.
If you're happy, we're right to crack on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
First question is always, for some people, the most difficult question, but who is Davinder Singh Toor?
Who is doing this? I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm an ordinary guy, fairly local to where we are now. Grew up in Slough, born in Watford. Just conventional kind of Punjabi family, and in my teens, kind of had the rare opportunity to be exposed to the world of art and antiques, and Indian and Sikh heritage, and and that's when my kind of journey began in the field that kind of we're here talking about. So, I think actually we are similar age, aren't we?
That's worrying. We've just said this, right? I'm going to say it for video. You're 2 months younger than me, and like I said, we're born in the same year. And I have just gone, you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm Danny DeVito from Twins. 100%, I've got the beard and everything,
Twins,
and that's it. I'm just like, Mari Kismet and Mari Karam here. I've ended up in this life. So that's scary as hell. Well, just off that, you say that you started this in your teens. I think my teens was hip-hop, football and going out. What inspired you at that age?
Yeah, there was plenty of hip hop, and in my case, cricket actually.
Yeah, cricket's always there.
So I was a bit of a cricket kind of fanatic from like 13 to 17, and I've always been my personality had always kind of been growing up. I used to get into something, and I'd be kind of obsessed with that thing, and then that would disappear, and then something else would kind of come. At one point it was football, another point it's cricket, and whatever. All the way through, though, I think from a very young age, I used to like drawing and painting and that kind of thing. So I liked art, and then as I'm sure you'll appreciate, within the kind of Sikh culture, going to the Gurdwara is there's stories, it's pictures, it's very visual.
Yeah.
You grow up with whether it's comic books or stories about the gurus, and so naturally you have an interest in history, but also like quite a relatively recent history, which I think we kind of grew up connecting to, right? And then so I think art and history kind of came together for me in the form of the objects and the works of art that I kind of collect now. And then it once I got involved in that kind of area, this was one thing that wasn't necessarily a fad, and it stuck. That's right.
Have we got a wasp in here?
This is
it's all right.
That's right. It's kind of like Punjabi authenticity.
Exactly, that's it.
Really.
We're in the pen. It's fine.
We need some macho, don't we, floating about? And
watch Manfred freak out. So, were you an art student yourself?
No, I wasn't. No, I don't. I don't even think, looking back, whether that was ever even an option. Like, I don't even think it was something that
wasn't an option when I was at school.
I don't even think it was something that I kind of considered. Like, it was. I'm not sure whether you felt the same, but at that time in our kind of household, and even friends' households, it was about being vocational, having a vocational degree, and pursuing something where you knew you were guaranteed a job. And art certainly wasn't the way to do that.
It was law, engineering, medicine.
Yeah,
those are what you pushed into.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it is. It's completely different. I've got 3 daughters who are all into art. But in my days, that would have been what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you want to do art, paint the walls in the house. Help me with the second house, help me decorate this. That would have been it.
Yeah.
But it was never a case of, Sikh art was something that we only had on a Sunday at the Gurdwara.
Yeah.
And that was only the paintings that we knew, unless we went to India.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
My eldest sister actually, she was a fantastic artist.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the kind of artistic genes ran in the family. I think everybody had a kind of sense of it, and but she was exceptional, and I used to kind of just sit for her, and she'd do my portrait and that kind of stuff, and I'd see some of the things that she was creating. So naturally, I was in that kind of area, and then also had kind of other relatives, kind of cousins who were painting or drawing, and I was kind of fascinated by it. So I suppose that seed was kind of sown quite early. At least I was exposed to it a little bit, and I think that's really important. I think.
Did anyone actually go into that as a profession?
Nobody. Oh, having said that, no, actually. So my sister now is an art teacher, actually now, but not initially. She actually went back.
Okay.
To kind of higher school education in her 30s, and then became she's an art teacher now, so that's good. So she's kind of giving back in that way.
Does she actually? This is completely off topic. Does she get to teach like the Indian method, the Indian old arts? Like how we talk about how you got the old masters in Europe, and their type of art is completely different from the Eastern types of art.
She actually never learnt the Indian kind of techniques. I don't think she was kind of exposed to those when she was younger, and so she doesn't work in that field. Like she's fairly kind of multidisciplinary in what she does, but none of it is. She's into printing, she's into ceramics, she's into kind of carving, all sorts of, but not actually like Bahari work or Indian miniature work. No.
That's all right. Right. So I know you've mentioned that you got into these things, but what is it that actually sparked your interest to start collecting?
I think one of the first things was my we all I've spoken about this in other chats, but basically we all kind of need mentors.
Yeah.
We all need someone to. No one ever does it on their own, do they? Like no one ever. It's never kind of this original thing that just turns up. So and a cousin of mine, Paramjit from Kashi House.
Yeah.
So he's 8 years older than me, and I was kind of hanging around with my cousins and my brother and stuff like that, and seeing what they were doing. And he was getting into it. He was in his mid-20s then.
Yeah, I remember him.
And he was really, really passionate about Sikh heritage.
Yeah.
And just to be around someone who's that passionate about something, it infects you.
Yeah.
You want to emulate. You want to see what it is. You want to have a passion in something. And so I was. And he signed me up to. I was just about to start uni. He signed me up to be a volunteer at the V&A, and I don't even think I'd been there before. And I was 18 at the time, about to turn 19, and I was a volunteer at the V&A's Arts of the Sikh Kingdoms, which you know very well. You were there also.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was the first time. I didn't even know Maharaj and Ranjit Singh's things were here at the time.
Exactly. I don't think many of us did.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, one of the first key moments. I think there were other moments too. I remember, there were other kind of. At that time, it was the era, and I'm talking about the kind of mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
It was like the era of Sikh camps and people getting into Gathka or Shastra Vidya and that kind of stuff. And then there was I remember going to a Sikh camp when I was 13 and seeing some guys from East London. They had weapons that collected that were old. Just seeing old things. So you were inspired by a few individuals who were trying to get pull Sikh heritage together, like from various sources.
Yeah. So that's what inspired you. Obviously, these sorts of people inspired you. How did you go from being inspired to actually going, I now want this? I know. There's a lot of things that inspire me, and then I sit there going, man, Netflix has just released a series. I'm sitting down and watching this. It's
I think you can't really. I'll be dishonest if I was saying to you that I had to motivate myself to do it. It was just there.
Yeah.
Each every one of us has, what is that thing that gets you up on a Sunday morning?
Yeah.
Out of bed early on a Sunday morning. What is that thing for people,
We're at car boots at the moment.
Car boots.
That's what we do.
Yeah. I can see that. I can understand that. And, and for me, it was like finding out where my local, or not even local, finding out where an antique fair was.
Yeah.
And then, these are the days before SatNav, printing out my multi-map instructions and then working out how to get to some obscure part of England and turning up at an antique fair with no idea what might be there, just hoping to find anything Indian, and with 100 quid in your pocket. So it was, and that was how it began. So I was already very active like that, and I was lucky in that I didn't live far from London. Portobello Road on Saturday mornings was a regular, Baramjit, he let me know where the map dealer was in London and where various other, an arms and armour dealer or a prints dealer, and I'd just go around and I remember we were on a trip to India, and those wonderful Indian road journeys that you take where you do nothing but think, right, with the same Keaton cassette on repeat, and he was just, I think I was about 17, 18, something like that. And I was just like, when I get back, anything that I can check out, anything where I can help. And he would, be like, well, check out this antique market here. This place is open from 10 to 4 on Saturdays. Yeah. And I thought, all right. And I thought, oh, God, now I've got to convince my mum to let me go to London on the train.
That was my next question.
Right. And so I should, just do it secretly, like go and get my 10 quid travel card and go to London and stuff like that. And then every now and then, he would send me on errands for research just to kind of go, look, I need these things looked at the British Library. Go there, get yourself a membership, work it out, get yourself a membership, sort this out, order these books, go through every one and see if you find any pictures of Sikhs. Yeah. Nobody is buying anything really because nobody has any money. Yeah. Right. So, and all he's doing, he's just interested in the visual kind of history. So he's looking for the stuff, and I was more than happy to be an assistant. And so that's how it is. And then you gradually, your knowledge base starts to increase. You buy your first thing, you just get stuck in, and then once you bought your first thing, that's it. You're on the road.
Were you researching? Because obviously, I remember Baramjit at the time, because we used to study with Davinder Singh at the time. So we started prior to him releasing the Soulable.info website. Yeah. So I remember them getting everything together. Him, they're just saying everybody were getting all the stuff together for the websites. Were you part of that as well?
Yeah. So we initially were probably amongst Davinder Singh's first students. I think in there's a small kind of group of us. So we met Davinder Singh in '96. Yeah.
Wolverhampton.
No, in Slough. So he turned up. My local Gurdwara, Singh Sabha Gurdwara, there's a Holla Mahalla program. And I think actually we were there doing Gathka actually. And that we were. And I remember that I had a Muslim and a Hindu friend from school. They also came to the Gurdwara that day to see this. And we met Davinder Singh and kind of just, he just seeing him from a distance, like, who the hell is that?
Yeah, it looks so different.
Yeah, that guy's interesting. And we just got chatting to him. And then he did a little bit actually in the demonstration. No, I'll never forget actually. He did his kind of like Shastra kind of namaskar, and then he did a press up where he kind of flies off the ground and claps his hands. And I thought, wow, this is different. This is pretty impressive. But anyway, that was our first kind of meeting with him, and it was quite refreshing at the time because it was different, but also it spoke to some of the kind of history, both kind of visual and kind of philosophical history that we'd kind of maybe been uncovering and researching, particularly Baramjit, less so me. But it just brought something to life, and so it was an interesting time back then.
Yeah, it was.
Lots of people interesting, I think, in the sense that there was lots of people who were just inquisitive.
It was the first exposure to different Sampradayas.
Yeah.
Other than the Taksal and the Akankili, which most people were used to because after 1984, that was the majority of the talk, and that was the majority of the thing. So all of a sudden to go, actually, there's so much liturgy out there.
Yeah.
And so much history out there, and this what.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And and it wasn't about this is authentic and this is the one that goes back and this is the original. You often kind of you go down the wrong path where you think that there's one,
Yeah.
and actually what it says is that no, it's the constant evolution, and this happened then, and here's an offshoot then, and this happens, and this lineage develops, but yet they still speak to each other, and then there's these overlaps, and that's just been how it is from the beginning, So it was a very interesting time. Many people I think they just describe that particularly, and that was building up. So we were meeting in 96.
Yeah.
V&A exhibition happened in 99, and almost exactly 25 years ago. And I think in many ways that was like this awakening and this really pivotal kind of Renaissance moment, from which lots of things then started to gradually happen.
Massively, because I remember I gave my, like stuff on the Biddies. Those are the books I gave to Davinder Singh at the time, because we had them with the Biddies and the Udasis and things like that. So that was before Sabra.info came up. And then when the launch of that and the multifurious faces of Sikhism, you get the timelines and then the crossovers and then everything. Not everybody agrees with everything that's in there. That's fine. But you look at the research, you go through it. But it was the first time that people went, I didn't know about this group. I didn't know about this group. I didn't know about this group. And like you said, at the time the V&A happened. And I remember that and picked up the Sikh Kingdoms book and I was like, this is something completely different.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know about half these things.
Yeah.
And it motivated me to move more towards the Nirmala lineage. That's where I went into, and that's where all the research started and everything like that. But it was those sorts of things. It was that exhibition at the time and research. So I didn't realise you were researching for that at the time as well. So
yeah, I mean, it was. I have to be honest. It was less so me. I was kind of, I was kind of in my late teens and kind of more. I was more of a witness to it, I think, and just beginning. I can't say that at that moment when I start, buy my first things at kind of 18, 19, I can't say for that moment I had this great vision of what it was going to be. It's a perfect example of just living day to day and just concentrating on what was in front of me or what my task was for the next day. And then slowly, like this thing just starts to snowball, and your knowledge base increases, your contacts increase, your confidence is increasing, you start to get a vision of what this is. And, I at some point, I'm not even sure exactly when, but I kind of decided to really focus on... I realised at one point that I was just a bit... how do you put it? I mean, not disheartened, but I was a bit underwhelmed at kind of... how well Sikh heritage was being preserved, published, exhibited. You naturally, particularly when you're young and you don't have any money, you naturally think that there's somebody out there who's wealthy and passionate and they'll do it. Yeah. And I couldn't see that. And I couldn't, and I just thought, well, either you complain about it or you try and do it yourself, you know. And so that's what I slowly, I think, started to do, really.
No, that's what was your first purchase? What was the first thing you ever bought?
It was a small dagger that purchased in. I was with my brother and my sister wanted to go up to Birmingham to a Mega Mela Bollywood show.
Yeah, we used to get to that.
Did you get to that?
We used to see the Octoman every year.
Okay.
So yeah,
we went up. Anyway, we went up and literally, like, we got outside the front kind of entrance of it, and I didn't particularly, to be honest. I mean, we watched Bollywood films growing up, of course, but like opposite it was the I think it was the National Antiques Fair or something. Right. And we were like, okay, you go that way, we'll go this way. See you back in a few hours. And then my brother and I went into this fair and just wandering about. And then I happened to spot this little knife in the bottom of a cabinet, basically, and I'd seen something similar at the British Museum, and it kind of jolted my kind of memory of that. And then 60 quid, and I didn't have 60 quid. Brother lent me some money, and then we bought this. And that very sister, actually, who was now the art teacher, she made the scabbard for it and sewed the leather for it and all this kind of stuff, and I've still got it.
Have you got any provenance on it?
No, and it wasn't even very good.
No, but it's not. I've got to add that. Because your first piece is always your first piece, isn't it?
I mean, I think the fact that it's not even very good is actually really beautiful, because it was, because I still had the same feeling that piece, as I find was a really great work. But it was old. It was made in about 1900, probably in Delhi or in Punjab. It actually was a dagger which was made for the tourist trade of its day.
Yeah.
So it was mimicking older, more authentic pieces, but it's now 125 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's still really beautiful workmanship. It's a false Damascus blade. It's really nicely forged. It has mother of pearl inlays and luck and enamel and jade, soapstone, and so it's got these. One is beautiful, but it's probably worth less than what I paid for it. So it's
would it be? I don't think 60. It would be more than 60 quid, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to. No,
I've actually got the provenance that you've held.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, let's call it 65 quid.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But it was just lovely because it could have been anything. It's just the fact that I had something old that I thought, okay, this is from that part of the world where we're from. This is made when my grandfather was born or something, so it was like, wow. And so I just used to every now and then to look at it, hold it. And so that was the first thing.
That was the first thing.
Yeah, that was the very, very first thing, yeah.
Right. I'm like you, right? I collect, and I collect different things, and I get obsessive and start getting more and more and more. And I have to hide them, before I get disappeared from my parents, especially at that age.
Yeah.
Because he used to be like, wow, and you're working all the time, where's all your purse? And you're like, it's hidden in football cards or collections, or at the time it was Transformers, or God knows what it was.
It sounds like we're living in the same house.
Yeah, it was that sort of thing. That was the worst, right? I went to uni, I was in Manchester, came back, I was like, Mum, where are all my Transformers? She's like, I gave them to Loris. I was like, they were worth over $8,000. I was like,
hang on, you had $8,000 worth of Transformers?
I spent ages collecting Transformers. Yeah.
Okay. This is a little bit. I had a was it Skyscream, was it?
Yeah, Starscream.
Starscream. Jet.
Yeah, Jetfire.
Yeah, I always needed an Optimus Prime, never got one.
Got a Prime.
Right, okay, but I did have. I had the old He-Man and Skeletor as well.
I've got all of them. Yeah. My house, as soon as you walk through the door, it's full of.
This is completely nothing to do with.
It's fine, yeah, but that's how it becomes.
I've got to tell you this as well. I'll see if you had this, because this actually was my pièce de résistance. Like it was, I had the A-Team van.
See, I had Hannibal, I had BA, I had Face. I never got Murdoch, and I never got the van. Never got the van.
We've heard it, but you missed out on that.
I tried to get that. I tried to get all sorts. My parents were like, "What are you doing?" And then it became that and football shirts, and they're like, "How many of these do you need?" And it's like, so it got to that point where my parents were like, "No."
I can see where you're getting to. Cause I think collecting that kind of thing, like in our household, my dad was like, he was a bit aloof and kind of like, he was forever just like pushing and encouraging and kind of like, Mum was Mum was, when we used to go to work and stuff, and Mum was the person that we came back and gave her salary to, like just handed it to her, like give her money to your mum, and so she used to, I think, wonder like what the hell I was up to every now and then, going out to Portobello Road every Saturday and come back with something or other. And we used to have this kind of bit of a rule in our house where if me and my brother were talking about what I just bought, and Mum was around, I'd divide a price by 10.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you have to do.
And I would just divide a price by 10, and then after a year or two, I started to divide them by 100, right? And then and then after a while, I remember once we were talking, and then my mum was like, "Look, you silly boy, like I know what's going on here. Wasn't born yesterday," sort of. So she kind of caught on quite quick. Yeah.
So at least your mum did that. My mum, what she did was, right, my paycheck would come in. I was allowed to keep 10%. 90% went into my account for when I got married. Nice. So, which was a double-signed account, so I couldn't sign any money out.
Amazing.
I had to have my mum with me. Okay. That ruined my collecting at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, at least you didn't have that. She was just like, "What the hell's happened to your money? You're doing all this overtime." And I was like, "But I got this new Transformer.
Yeah.
Or I got this new football shirt. I've got a Batistu to sign." She's like, "I don't care. Get that over here now."
Brilliant.
Because they've come from that time where they had to scrimp and save and they had nobody to go to for help.
Yeah.
And they were like, to see me, they had to leave a frugal life because they didn't have anything.
Absolutely.
And to see me going, "Look what I've just brought," and that used to piss them off a bit.
I think there's always that kind of, that's always going to be there with, an immigrant community who found it hard to kind of scrimp and save and kind of get by. But, I was very fortunate. I don't actually think over the course of my life I've given enough credit to how much of an influence my mum had on my collecting journey. And in two ways, really, I think. One was And I never would have thought at the time that I'd be looking back at these moments, but the amount of suit shops that I went to in Punjab,
Yeah.
right, sipping on a thumbs up or a Coke, waiting for my mum to haggle this guy,
All these couple of
for
games
the
thrown out.
cuppa, all that, and and endless. I think pretty much, I'd go to India for like 2 weeks and I'd spend 90% of that time in the suit shops,
yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah,
like
it
we all
happens,
experience.
yeah.
But what I used to witness was like these amazing haggling skills
yes.
that my mum had, and I'd be like, it's amazing. Like, it was like, what a performance. Like, it was fantastic. And to the point in which these guys were like completely exhausted. And little tricks.
Yeah.
She'd pull out fabrics that she didn't even want. And pull out the one that she wants at the end.
Yeah.
Little things like that. And I remember over the time thinking, after a while, just realising that I'd actually learnt quite a lot from her, kind of vicariously like that. But also, I think what was really interesting was that she kind of didn't. She kind of let me be a bit free and kind of do what I needed to do. So she gave me a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And without that, I don't think I could ever have done any of this, because had I always been answering to her or kind of needing to justify, I don't think I could have done it, because I think in order to collect like this, you've got to take huge risks.
Absolutely.
And you have to be really convinced about what it is that you're doing or buying or whatever, and that you can only have after you've been allowed to lose it all, make a mistake.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
Coming on to, have you made a purchase that you look back on and gone, I wish I didn't?
I think you naturally, who's going to have a kind of 100% perfect record?
No.
Like, I think naturally everybody. It's weird, isn't it? It's like I think philosophically it comes back. That kind of comes to: is there any such thing as a bad experience or a mistake?
Yeah. Well, that's a learning
right?
point.
Is there any such thing as kind of like bad luck, good luck, or how do you look at your experience? And actually, what you realise over time is that it's all experience, and actually, depending on how you reflect on it, it's all great.
Yeah.
It's all got the power to be great or bad, like whatever it is. I could have made a great purchase, which ends up being terrible for me in a weird way.
Yeah.
Later on, and equally, I certainly got stung a few times, and you've got to be more and more vigilant, and that never ends.
Yeah.
So you're always you're going to be shown things that are suspicious or fake or whatever. That's just the nature of the game. That's been there since the dawn of time, right? So, in every industry, and the question is how do you learn from any mistakes that you make? But equally, seeing something which isn't very good quality or poor or modern or imitation helps you understand what is good quality.
Yeah.
So they go hand in hand, really. So it's you always have to keep your eyes open.
Yeah. I'm going to go on to. I just want you to speak out. When we went to Hampton Court, you went through some of the things that you found while you were researching and looking through all these things. One of the things was a story that you said you and Barbara went to see a load of photos, and you ended up finding a photo of your grandfather.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that, please? Because I don't know whether you've spoken about this on another podcast. You might have done already, but I'm just like, for me, it was one of those moments where you're like, I found something linked to me, and it must have been like finding the gold that at the end of the rainbow sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a dealer called us up and just said, got these military albums. You might want to have a look at them. There's a few pictures of Sikhs in there, and we went together, and our mothers are sisters.
Yeah.
Right. So it must see them under, and we're just flicking through these albums, just seeing, and then you start to see, there's Iraq, and then it's like early 20th century Iraq, and then 1919 actually, and then tug of war, and then there's some campsites, and there's some Sikh boxing, and then there's bits of this, bits of that, and then suddenly is a group of polo players, and very quickly, like obviously with them, Granddad used to play polo, and then you look closer, and like literally that moment, like shivers down your spine, hair standing on end, and look at each other like, that's our nana, like he's just staring back at you, and and then his name's in there, and then there's I think there's about 4 pictures of him in this album. And so what are the chances?
Exactly.
Of that? And I'm not a huge believer in things like fate and stuff like that, really, I suppose. But it wasn't an odd moment for sure, and it's those moments that are extremely special, and they spur you on. They, in this game, you never find the same thing twice anyway.
Yeah.
So you're always waiting to see what you're going to find next, and how that adds to what you found before, and to find a photograph of your nana that's just been sitting in somewhere in England.
Yeah. A
Like
random house. He doesn't know the value of it.
Yeah, since the 1920s. In the military album of the man who's pulling these images together of all of his travels and the regiments and stuff. And so you imagine now we know that a photograph of our granddad was here in England 50 years before our parents even turned up here.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? So yeah, it was special. Yeah. Did
you get the provenance on his military? Did you know his military background?
We
and
did
things like that before.
Yeah, we did. So we knew. So in fact, we already knew. Like as we're kind of flicking through, the word Burma turns up. We knew that he served in Burma. We know that we probably got a little bit of Burmese ancestry.
Well, our nanny's from.
Born
in Burma. They had to leave everything behind.
Exactly.
And coming to India.
Exactly. My about a decade ago, my mum went to Burma.
Yeah.
To find some long lost relatives who she found who looked completely Burmese,
yeah.
And so we knew that there was this connection, but you're never expecting that. And you what's the lesson in all of that? The lesson is always that phone call comes, so might have something here for you, don't know, but you want to check it out.
Yeah.
The lesson is that you say yes.
Yeah, exactly. Don't spell
because that could have been no, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Or no, unless it's really special, I don't want to come. Or how much is it? No, that already sounds too expensive.
Yeah.
All that stuff that could have been said, and instead, what you learn to do is to go, all right, we don't know what we don't know, so let's come. We'll come and have a look and let's see. And every now and then you, as you say, you find the gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
So.
I'm guessing they're in your collection now, or they're in.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
What was the surprise? It would have been on your Mussie's face and your mum's face when you come home and go, look what I've got.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a funny time because it was. I remember at that time, apparently he was getting married.
Yeah.
And so we had a few relatives over from India, and one of my mum's cousins was over from India, staying at our house. And I came back home with this military group photograph, one of the photographs in the album, and my mum's sitting on the sofa next to, let's call her my mussie, my mum's cousin. And I put the photograph in front, and my mum's like, what have you been up to today? What's going on?
Yeah.
What you bought today? And I just put this photograph in front of her, and they said, recognise anybody? Like, Mum, Shani, And she looks at it, and she points to my mussie.
Yeah.
Who's sitting next to her, and points to someone else in that picture, and says, "Oh, that's her dad."
Oh my God!
Right? And I'm like, "Well, I didn't know."
Yeah.
And I said, "All right." I said, "Who's next to him?" And then she went, "Oh, that's my dad."
Yeah.
So these two cousins had gone to war together.
Yeah.
So her dad and my mum's dad. So the first thing she spots is her dad, and she just happens to be. She'd never been to England before.
Yeah.
From the bend, and just happens to spot, her dad in this picture. And I think she'd either hadn't seen a picture of her dad that young before, or this was news to her. Like, what the hell? You got a picture of my dad. What's a picture of my dad doing here?
Exactly.
So it was it made it even more extraordinary.
So you've got two relatives in one photo who served, obviously, within Mesopotamia during the First World War, that would be.
Yeah, so they went, I think their pictures, so the album had different places.
Yep.
But I'm pretty sure that they because they were in the polo section.
Okay.
And that was still in India.
Yeah.
So wherever that was taken was in 1919 was actually in India as part of this polo tournament, which I looked up at some stage. I've got details of it somewhere.
It'd be interesting to find out why they were, because the Sikhs were scattered anyway. Whether they were in France, you had a lot of them in Turkey. They were in Israel, because in Israel they have the what do you call them? The Baha'is have a big thing for the Sikhs there. So there could have been anyway. That would be be really interesting. And obviously, the Edgeball had put out a load of postcards not long ago of all the Sikhs in front of the Sphinx and things like that. So it's that sort of thing. That'd be interesting. No, thank you for that. And just going into the items, what are there specific items you look for when you're collecting? Was it right? We get out there and go, there's a bug on that, we'll take that, or that's something to do with Punjab, or that's something to do with Sikh. We're a bit of everything because it's just whatever we can find. We're looking now, but at that time,
I mean, it naturally begins like that.
Yeah.
Some of that is, you are casting the net pretty wide initially, just trying to find anything. Some of that also, for most of us collectors at the beginning, like it's related to what can I afford to collect as well. Like
exactly.
we're going to look within that naturally, and then as it kind of gets a bit bigger, you can start to, you might find one postcard of the Golden Temple one day, and then the same thing you might find again, and then you got to ask yourself, well, do I need a second one?
Yeah.
Initially, you pick it up. Right, but then after a while you think, well, maybe there's something else I need to look at that adds to this in a different way. So I'm always looking to kind of fill the gaps that naturally presenting themselves within the collection, and the collection is very much based, I like stories, like I like storytelling and personalities, and so I think about the collection that way as well, to say, what is missing here that completes this part of this story, and that could be any type of object, and there's a kind of like a hierarchy of objects really. Naturally, if you had an object that belonged to a particular individual, or if you had an object which is just extremely rare, or you might have an object which is just stunningly beautiful, and ticks all the boxes, so you are, you do need some very key kind of objects in your collection, but I think the storytelling aspect of it is crucial when you're trying to identify what you want to keep. So
what part in your collecting do you start making that net smaller and going, this is what I'm looking for now in particular, because would that be, you start off, like you said, your net is cast quite wide because you're just looking for things to start your collection, and then you start going, I've got this, but I want to go into this niche now.
I think you're continually doing it. I think you started off quite early. Every now and then you're having to reassess what you have, what shape, how it's an ever kind of evolving shape of a collection. It's kind of dynamic. Sometimes you can feel as if it's beyond your control. How things gravitate and come to you, things will present themselves to you. So after 25 years of collecting, you get to a place where I'm offered something every day. And that's no exaggeration. Every day I'll be offered something from somebody. And so the days of me going out on a Sunday morning to an antique fair to look are kind of gone in one sense. And so you are you're having to kind of, and some things will turn up and you think, I just have to have that. I don't even have a choice. Like,
but that's good though. You now get to be choosy and fussy and go, if it fits what I want, I'll have it. I don't. If you're getting offers every day, that's amazing.
And obviously
you've got to look at financially. You've got to look at everything. You've got to look at not getting. Your other half going, we need to look at this, we need to look at what's financially viable, we need to look at what we can do logistically with some of these things as well.
I remember I learned a lesson, a really valuable lesson really early on, and this, everything really does go back to people and generosity and mentors, and a really good friend of mine, Robert Hales, his name is, a dealer who used to have a shop in Notting Hill. And I'm not even joking. Like I was too scared to go into his shop as a kid. Like it's quite intimidating. Like you see this wonderful display in the window, you're never going to go in to buy anything. So I can't waste anybody's time. I can't let someone know that I'm relatively poor.
I haven't got the money to afford these items.
You don't go in. But at some point I did muster up the courage to kind of get in there, and and he was so generous, and I was, like I said, I probably in my early 20s by that point, and with his knowledge, he was generous, which is also rare.
Yeah.
And he gave me some advice, and he said, look, he said, if you have £1,000 to spend, he said, don't buy 5 things for 200 quid.
Yeah.
He said, buy one thing for £1,000,
Yeah.
if you can. Right? He said, because it all comes back round again, and buy the best that you can buy. Right? Because if you keep amassing this collection of £200 things, you'll never get to buy the good stuff.
Yeah.
Firstly, funds will be tied up. And secondly, you're not experiencing what it's like to have something good.
Yeah.
The moment you push yourself to have something really great, it's difficult for you to buy less than that.
Yeah.
So then things start to improve. And I kind of went back and I did the unthinkable, which was I went back and looked at everything that I had, which wasn't much. Maybe let's say it was 10 pieces or something. I can't remember exactly, but I went and looked at it and I thought,
yeah,
I'm going to keep one. I'm going to sell 9 of them.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then I looked at it and I thought, I just, those 9 have got to go.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly confident I'll be able to find them again if I desperately need them. And then you start to add.
Yeah.
And then you start to kind of then you enter a different world. Yeah. And that's good advice.
Well, like I said, I knew who you were from the V&A. I'd heard your name, but first time I saw you was on TV. It was on BBC One, a programme where they show this lovely fresco of what is almost, and they were like, it's in the back, you've got the bar side right at the top. And obviously you were showing it in a storage locker going, this is what I've got and this is my collection. I'm guessing you've amassed that much that you still need storage lockers and things like that, and you've not got, how you said you've waned your collection down by going, I only want what's quality now rather than quantity. I'm guessing you've got enough quantity, I can see that from the exhibition anyway, enough quality out there. If you're being offered stuff every day, what is your latest purchase?
I think my latest, most significant purchase was a probably near contemporary 17th century, most likely near contemporary, definitely 17th century, close to 1700 portrait of Guru Har Gobind, and it's probably one of the earliest portraits of him outside of India, probably the second or third earliest portrait of him outside of India. It came from a wonderful collection. It belonged to Bill Archer. William Archer was the keeper of the South Asian collection at the V&A. He actually did the first proper book on paintings of the Sikhs in 1966 to commemorate the 300th birth anniversary of Guru Gobind Singh. And that was, as a result of that book, the Sikh paintings in the V&A got catalogued. But he also, people didn't realise, was also a collector. Yeah,
I remember you mentioned this,
Yeah, so he was also a collector. He was, helping other people kind of amass collections. And interestingly, this portrait of Guru Har Gobind, which probably came from Patna, he had connections in Patna, with dealers in Patna, and it's marked with his inventory number 01. And I remember, is it one of the first ones that you collected? Is it one of the first ones that you marked? So that was really exciting to find that, and once again, the importance of provenance and history with an object. So it's beautiful, it's rare, it's early. It's with another established kind of collector. It's got this provenance, so it's one of these really strong objects. Yeah. That's one of the more recent things, that I've managed to acquire.
That's right. Is there a bucket list of items that you still want to get? I only ask that because you showed a beautiful piece at the Hampton Court of Guru Gobind Singh Ji on the elephant.
Yeah.
And then you said, where is it? And Paramjit went, I found this in the button on bead, and there's a very similar type. Yeah. And it's that sort of thing, and you said, I missed out on that one.
Yeah. No, I got that one.
Did you get one?
Yeah, I got that one. That was also from William Archer's collection.
Was it? Yeah, that's where you mentioned him.
That's right, yeah. So that was also from his collection. There is, in terms of bucket list, there are objects that I'm aware of that are kind of on a list.
Yeah.
And, those are either objects that are connected to particular personalities, or objects might be sitting with certain other collectors.
Yeah.
So what I've always kind of known of is, way even before I was even buying and selling, collecting these things.
Yeah.
First of all, you start to just collect books.
Yeah.
And you're collecting old auction catalogues, so you're kind of building up this database of where things are, and then tracking them down.
Yeah.
There's always a bit of detective work like that being done, and so there is a list of certain things that I know exist and where they exist, and then you just got to work out how and when.
No, but that's it. I'm not asking you to mention it. It's just that.
Yeah.
Have you still got that fire in you to keep that? And that's the thing, isn't it? Because some people get to that point and they go, I'm done now, or something happens.
I've often thought that there might be a moment where I kind of stop, and I think I've resigned myself to understanding that that's just not how it's going to be. I'll probably stop when I'm dead, to be honest with you.
And that's it. The other thing is, for us, we know that there's somebody out there trying to preserve our heritage. And you're out there doing that, because if you hadn't done what you've done, I want to see some of the things that I've seen.
It's. There's a real joy in me, kind of being able to, I'm termed a kind of private collector, in the sense that I don't have a museum, right?
Yeah.
There's no joy in just having a collection and keeping it, to yourself. And the joy actually comes through exhibiting, and publishing, and sharing. Having said that, I'm also kind of, I don't want to kind of. Ever confuse anyone and thinking that I don't ever view this as some kind of seva. Do you know what I mean? Often people say to me, "Oh, that's a great seva that you're doing for the Panth." I don't view it like that.
Yeah.
This isn't a sacrifice on my part.
No, but it isn't a sacrifice, but it's making things accessible to people who would never have seen it.
Yeah.
That in itself, if you provide a service that other people would never have got, that in itself is a seal. For me, like I said, we tried to go and see Baba Maharaj Singh Ji's items numerous times, and it just got blocked. We ended up getting access, and then the day before they blocked it. And for us, I remember we came on the first day the exhibition opened when we met you there, and I had gone around slow because I was taking pictures of everything, I was seeing everything, and I got Nick and Davinder Singh, who's my cousin. He came up and said, "Take your time, but what you want to see is right at the end." Because they had already got there and seen it. And got there, seen all the hard stuff, seen everything, and then that was it. That was my moment. That was my pot of gold.
Yeah.
I had been wanting to see that for years and years and years.
The articles.
The shank, the sui, the chakkar, the piece about the jogniya. I want to see those things.
Yeah.
And then you've got the picture of Karak Singh and Maharaj Singh in front as well.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of thing, because obviously I spent time with Sanjit Singh Ji Harkawale, who were from that lineage, and Ariel Sant from that lineage. We came into Sikhi through them, because before that we weren't Sikh, so our family came in through, by Davinder Singh Ji Samprada. So for us it's a personal thing, where you're like, these are my, video stars, their stars, that's actually their piece sort of thing.
Yeah.
So for us it's a massive seva.
Yeah.
I know you might not see it that way,
Yeah.
but I would never have seen it.
Yeah, no, I get the power of it, because I'm also a product of that, right? So back to back in when we both went to the V&A exhibition, I keep talking about it, but I do see the power of, like, when we get these school visits.
Yeah.
There's nothing that gives me more joy like when we get these school visits, and you've got these like this group of kids that's running around so excited, seeing objects that are connected to their history, their heritage. We've had some stats back over the course of the exhibition, and 67% or something of our audience has never been to a paid exhibition before.
Yeah.
Like almost 50% of the audience has never been to the Wallace Collection before.
Yeah.
And then for these kids to grow up and with these wonderful works of art connected to them being normalised, I think it's really exciting. I think it'll be in another 10, 15 years between when those 12, 13-year-olds become 22, 23-year-olds that we'll really start to see the impact of what we're doing here. So I'm really hopeful about that. It's just been brilliant. I mean, it's just been the energy, 3 generations of a family coming together, experiencing something together. It's been very emotional. like for a lot of people. You know, the Punjabi audio guide has been helpful for a lot of people. Like it's just been a wonderful experience.
Not just that. You've had some Davinder Singh who were there last week from Radha Sahib, and their lineage goes back. We brought Santari Singh who's my ustad. They wanted to see all these items. So those sorts of people who their life is mostly doing katha and prachar and things like that, all of a sudden take that time out and go, we want to go and see this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for them, and they saw it as a serial. They're like, you know, seeing the letter from the French sovereign, and they're like, oh my God, look at it, look at the silk, it's packaging and sort of all that. You know, they didn't know about the links between General Allard and people like that. You know, so for them it was, and my style even said, he said if I had more time I would have stayed longer, I want to see more bits. But for them again, when they face the picture of Baba Digga Singh and Baba Sahib Singh Jubiddi, then it's that this was the person who brought the missiles together, the Raj Tilak on Maharaja Ranjit Singh. And then they're standing there espousing their history of that individual to you. And we're learning at the same time as well as them taking in something new. And there's those sorts of people who've never been to, they don't go to museums. You know, they'll go to, you know, the Bar Sahib's Ajab Card because it's there or whatever. But otherwise, unless it's linked to a Gurdwara, they don't go. So to come to a museum, it was completely different for them, definitely. Sorry, you've talked about the V&A. You said how you got involved as a volunteer. What were your duties there in 99?
My duties were to sit in the foyer at the beginning, had a little desk, and right at the front, and basically when Sikhs and Punjabis would turn up, I'd have to tell them where the exhibition was.
That's it.
And so I would. So I remember actually it was quite painful because every day I actually wanted to go to the exhibition.
Yeah.
And then and you got to see it a little bit at the beginning, but then I have to just sit there, and then basically say, look, walk them down, tell them where it is, they come back, and then get the next coach, and then walk them down, tell them where it is.
Yeah.
And you know, I bought the paperback version of the catalogue.
Yeah, that's what
and I just sat there and read it.
Yeah.
And it was really easy to read, and it was just like I just consumed that, and then it's like eye-opening, you know. And then every now and then, and that magic didn't stop. So whenever I did get a chance to just pop down there, have a look at it, have a look at, you know, a turban helmet or a cannon or, you know, a portrait, and there's some wonderful pieces in that exhibition. And they had wonderful pieces. They added a lot of context to those pieces. I don't know whether you remember, but when you look back at that catalogue now, there's actually there's a lot of non-Sikh, what you would term non-Sikh material in it.
Yeah.
But just to set the scene, you know, you got objects connected to the Mughals, you got objects connected to the kind of Bahari kind of painting schools. So some stuff you kind of, I think many people actually went and thought, man, this isn't Sikh.
Yeah, well, that's what you thought initially when you're like, here's some silks, here's some embroideries, and you're like,
what's going on?
Yeah.
And then, but it added that kind of context. And I think what's exciting about the kind of landscape now, 25 years on, is that there's actually works of art that people are seeing now that they weren't even aware of then. Yeah. So, for example, you mentioned the Baba Sahib Singh Bedi portrait by Maharaj Singh portrait. Yeah. You know, on the colourful scene of Ranjit Singh's Darbar.
That's beautiful.
The other one of
the young picture of Maharaj Ranjit Singh. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah. For me, I was like,
the young portrait of him. In '99, people weren't aware of those objects. Yeah. They weren't even aware of their existence. Yeah. So that's why they weren't, you know, connected to that. So then that gives rise to this kind of searching and looking, and then those objects slowly surface. So we don't even know what we're yet to find. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. You're now a curator at the Wallace Museum. Two things. What was the process of becoming curator? What do you do?
So I think I'm the guest curator of this exhibition. Yeah. I think the process is, firstly, myself and Brandjit, we'd worked on these exhibitions at SOAS with others too, and so we co-curated a couple of shows there, 3 shows over the course of from 2011 to 2018 was the last one. Yeah. And in 2018, the director of the Wallace Collection, he'd come to see that show, I'd never met him there, but
Yeah.
when I finally met him, he told me that he'd visited that exhibition 6 times.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
thought that was extraordinary. And I said to him, I said, why did you come 6 times? And he said, I needed to kind of absorb all. He said there was so much content.
Yeah.
He said I needed to keep coming back to try and take it all in.
Yeah.
And then that exhibition was successful. It's a different kind of space. The SOAS show, the Brunei Gallery. But then it got us talking, and then about 4 years ago, we got together at the Wallace Collection when we were just thinking about, they reached out and we were just thinking about, well, is there potentially a show that we can do here? Like, do the Wallace have certain objects that we can, build a show around?
Yeah.
And clearly they do, and that's how that began.
Well, that's the next question. Is that how long did it take to put that together? Only because we had gone to the Wallace a year and a bit before your exhibition, and we'd gone to see the Dal of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Went to see the sword that was there. Then we're just having a look. Obviously, they got the helmet there, the Sikh helmet. So they had a couple of things. A Bishka was a guitar. And while we're there talking to a woman, she's like, she said, we do like shows where they put on, where people have their armour on and they're fighting, or kids can come and dress in it. And she went, we've got the exhibition, the Sikh exhibition here next, that's being done. And we just looked at each other like, you what? She must be a bit confused, sort of thing. And it was only later on that I found out, obviously, you were putting this together. And then at Hampton Court, you had announced that it was going to be launched soon, and Rav had told me about it as well. But obviously, that had been in the makings for a long time. It isn't the case of, I've put this together and it's going up this week. It's not a pop-up.
No, it was about 4 years in the making.
Oh, God.
So, and one of the reasons is that when you think about any museum's kind of programming for their exhibitions is done about 3 years in advance.
Okay.
So, if you now wanted to do an exhibition somewhere, you're not looking at getting a slot for at least. If you apply now, you might get a slot in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the lead time. So, and over the first couple of years, you are, considering, the narrative, the objects, the production level. Are you going to have a catalogue? How are you going to physically build the show? Is there going to be an audio guide? You're trying to make all these decisions, and then you're trying to cost that.
Yeah.
Then you're trying to find funding for that. It has to be 100% funded.
Yeah.
Through donation, and then it really kind of picks up pace, kind of like with a year and a half, 2 years to go, when you've got to write the catalogue and get all your conservation, photography, all that. There's so many different elements to it. 4 years in total, but the last couple of years are probably a bit more intense.
How difficult was it to acquire some of those items? Because they're in private collections, other museums.
Yeah.
Okay, your collection's your collection. You can provide that. You can go, right, I want this in there. But trying to get hold of some of those pieces within the V&A or Leeds Armoury, the Royal Armouries, or you've got things from the British Museum or the library. How difficult is that?
I have to say that all of our lenders were just absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
And they were just really enthusiastic. We had so much support. Everybody was really excited to be involved. Everybody thought that the loan request and the rationale for the exhibition, it was just wonderful. And I think it just goes to show that museums are really keen to do these exhibitions. What they need is good partners.
Yeah.
The Wallace Collection is a fantastic partner, and they provided me with all the support that I needed to do what I needed to do, and then and naturally, if you tell someone, well, this is what we're doing, this is what we're getting, and this is who else is going to be involved. Do you want to be a part of this? They all just came forward and said, yes, we'd love to be a part of this journey. So it was. It wasn't that difficult. Obviously, some loans that we couldn't get, logistically or cost-wise or conservation-wise, and that's just how it is. So, but it was good. It was a nice. I think what was really wonderful about this show is that, so many different museums. Many of them, we had some loans from France, from the Guimet and the Versailles and the Louvre, but so many of the loans are actually from collections here. And that was brilliant, I think, for the museums in the UK to come together and collaborate in this way and showcase objects that otherwise might not see the light of day.
Yeah.
You know, they might not be able to exhibit them publicly ordinarily, so then they do it.
I'm guessing you had probably access to what you've put up is probably about 40% of what you would have been given. You know, you had to cherry pick what you wanted on the exhibition itself.
Yeah, I mean, you start off with an ideal wish list.
Yeah.
But then you've also got to work out, aside from cost,
Yeah.
you're also trying to work out, well, what is the physical space that we're working in?
Yeah.
What is the average attention span
Yeah.
of a visitor?
TikTok, 10 seconds.
There you go.
It is, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
well,
You
it
look
gets
at
less
how
and
brief you
less.
have to put things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's shocking. Like, you know, we know that most people don't engage with captions.
Yeah.
If you've got people who find it difficult to stay on their feet for a while, or the elderly coming through an exhibition, like how long?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, what you're looking at is an exhibition which is around what we have, which is around 80 to 100 pieces, because beyond that, you actually are exhausted.
It reminds us of, just quickly, we went to the Vatican City, so we did the Vatican museums, and you could see the difference. So we spent hours and hours in there, and my eldest daughter was done within a bang. She like walked through, gone, and she was waiting in the canteen for us for about 3 hours. So yeah, you know, when you talk about that, you're like, yeah, it wasn't the elderly there; it was the young who went, I'm bored now. I need my TikTok or my food. So yeah, sorry, I didn't even think about that. When
no, so you got to balance all of that. So naturally, then you have to really kind of hone down that list to those kind of objects that, you know, tick all those boxes and tell your story. So, you know, you would have experienced in that exhibition, either through a tour or through the audio guide, how, you know, those objects are connected to one another.
Yeah.
You know, you can, one relates to the next, and then it's reminding you about something that you saw before, and then you go back to then you go to the end and realise that connects to the beginning, and so you're constantly kind of dancing through these objects, and and I think that's really the power of it.
Yeah.
You know, individually you can go and see Ranjit Singh's throne at the but to see it in a setting where it's next to a portrait of his, or next to a portrait of his son sitting on the throne, you know, something like that. You know, that's when things really come to life.
It is that portrait of the Lahore Darbar, right, where you've got all the characters there, all the personalities there. The thing that got me was I was stood there. I can actually see that Sheesh Mahal behind. I can see that bit there. I can see that. I was there only in November. Yeah. I was there with my parents. So when I look at that photo, I took that photo back because my parents, they haven't had time to come. And they were just like, oh my God, that actually looks like where it was. That looks exactly like this. That looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
And it brings that story to light.
Yeah.
With regards to, you know, I'm just thinking, with regards to this exhibition, were there any concerns? I'm only thinking because the Just Stop Oil people had mashed up a load of things at other exhibitions and
I think there are sensitive areas. I think the kind of biggest concerns I think were probably around this idea of colonial loot.
Yeah.
Colonialism, maybe somebody saying, well, you know, you shouldn't be exhibiting, give us back our heritage, send back the Kohinoor diamond, that kind of stuff. And, you know, you can either, that's always a concern, and, you know, you can either kind of look at that and say, well, okay, in that case, we better not risk anything, we better not do anything, or you can say, well, actually, no, there's a story to be told. Yeah. You need to face that full on. You need to tell the story as it is, and without kind of pandering to any one particular group. And it's a museum's duty, and this is where the Wallace were fantastic, and the other institutions who lent, they understood that, you know, as custodians of those objects, like, they want them to be shared, they want them to be preserved, they want them to be published. What more can we ask for? And so that I think that was always going to be the major concern, was how are people going to react to this? You know, without, I suppose it was helpful because I was, you know, co-curating the show, but, you know, had it not been me co-curating the show, you know, it gives somebody more kind of license to be able to say, no, this is an English museum that shouldn't be doing this exhibition. Give us back whatever. Yeah. You know, we want our people, you know,
and that's
represented.
I didn't even think about that.
So that was the major thing. That was always the major kind of concern, you know, is, and every now and then, you know, if somebody doesn't understand the history of the Punjab, pre and post annexation, and how these objects travelled about, how collections were formed, the kind of complex nature of that, and the nuanced nature of that, then it's easy for you to kind of pick a side and, and protest and whatever you want to do. But actually, when you sit down and look at that complicated story, which is what we've tried to do in this exhibition, is to pull out all the little threads that don't just leave you feeling, oh my God, give us back all of our stolen heritage. It's like, no, it's a bit more complex than that. Yeah. These are humans. Ranjit Singh this is why he's a fascinating figure to base an exhibition around, because he's not a guru.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
He's not your saint. He's
a sovereign
flawed,
ruler.
sovereign king who becomes a king after being a boy. He's a warrior first, and he's fantastic in many things, and he's foolish in other things.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that, isn't it? And it's so it's brilliant, because actually, what are we doing through an exhibition like this? You're getting to explore yourself.
Yeah.
You're getting to understand what makes you who you are, and how you're not just black and white or good or bad. And history wasn't like that either. So, you've got Sikh figures there in that exhibition who later on become traitors.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you've got French officers who stick around and fight in the Anglo-Sikh wars, and their swords are inscribed in Gurmukhi with their names. Yeah. Those are the stories we want to highlight, because actually the power of an exhibition like this is it's not a Sikh exhibition. Like, it's not a Sikh story. It highlights a shared heritage.
Yeah.
And that's where the power is, because we've got to understand that we're all so deeply connected. Yeah. And what better way to do that other than through art, and through someone saying, "Come over here, let me tell you a story." Yeah.
That's wicked. When are the you've got 4 weeks left. We've had 40,000 people already come and visit this, and it's been absolutely incredible. We've been 3 times. It's great, and every time I come, I see something different that I didn't see. That we were saying this last time, actually, and it's a piece within there that you've had put up on the board. It says military horseman of Ranjit Singh.
Yeah.
Are we sure that's not Ranjit Singh?
Yeah, no, it's not. Did you see that? In the top left?
Yeah.
It says Ranjit Singh 1814.
Yeah, we were looking at that. So we were looking at that. We were just like, this horseman is bedecked out. He's got everything on him. He's got the thing full of gunpowder. He's got everything. I was just like looking at all the items and like, it's him. Obviously, his eye isn't there, but you're like, obviously, is that due to the artist, not showing that flaw? Is it this? Is it?
Yeah. So someone has annotated that in top left, Ranjit Singh 1814. For a long while, people thought this is Ranjit Singh.
Okay.
If you look again at that picture, right in the middle in the sky, it's a very faint Persian inscription. Okay. And that Persian inscription says that this is a bodyguard of Ranjit Singh's.
Oh, that's fine. We were using Google Lens everywhere.
Yeah. So this is, exactly. So this is, and that's why it's there, and it's showing you what a warrior soldier of that time looks like. And that's why we, in the showcase in front of the blow up, we pulled out elements of what he's wearing. Also, we pulled out there's a dagger on display, black jade inlaid with turquoise.
On the back,
and that's the dagger of the man who commissioned that picture, Colonel James Skinner, who's an Anglo-Indian. Yeah. And the inscription in Persian, in turquoise, says Colonel James Skinner, in his dagger, and he's also the man. And then later on in the exhibition, he's the one who commissions and writes the biography of the nobles. Yeah. The Tazkirat al-Umra, the 3 copies that exist, and one of them's in the show, which has Ranjit Singh, and then stories of his family. So we've got that kind of connection there. But it's
that's what I mean. 40,000 people have been, and if you've only been once, you'll see something once. But first time I came, Baba Sahib Singh Ji did these. I was because I'm born on the same day. When I was born, my grandparents were at the Badsi Samagam at Unna Sahib. We have a family link to them. Baba Madsood Singh Ji stay at our house. We know Baba Sabjot Singh Ji's family that way, and our family still. So I was mesmerised by that the first time. Second time I went there, it was again, I focused on the because I brought the book first time, which is with the exhibition. Read the bits about the Jogniya and everything about Maharaj Singh Ji, and I was just like, right. And then because I went with Bob Hudson, they were actually reciting it out, and they're like,
Wow.
right, this is for this. It tells you which way to face, which way to do the barge, which way. They said, this is what you do in war. This is all the jargon, invoking all these things. So we were mesmerised there. And then the third time, like I said, we saw that picture and we're like, are we sure it's not? Are we sure it's not Ranjit Singh, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, the Lahore Darbar is something that I found fascinating in itself anyway, but you've had 40,000 people come and see these things. We've got 4 more weeks. When are the public going to be able to see these things again? Some of the collections are yours, some of them go back to the armories, V&A and things like that. I know they'll be able to see some of them.
Yeah, so some of them will be back in their institutions,
Yeah.
back on public display.
Yeah.
Some of their displays as a result of an exhibition like this might get reimagined
Yeah.
and refreshed. You're waiting for opportunities like this to come around again, so these objects can kind of come out. And there's a few things kind of in the pipeline at the moment that are all a bit up in the air as to what might happen to the show afterwards. It won't be travelling abroad.
Yeah.
I can say for certain, but we are trying to work out a few other things, so we'll wait and see. But it's it hopefully just maybe spurs even others on to try and do their shows in their respective countries worldwide, and and in the back of my mind, I'll probably take a little bit of a rest after this, but then I'm already kind of thinking about the next projects.
Good.
And where and what they might be, something different.
No, because you've only just made me worry when you said it took 4 years to do this, and you need to normally book 3 years ahead. So
I know.
Man, I'm already thinking 2030. Are we looking around there? Are we looking around? God knows what. That's the only reason I asked that, especially now that when you said that. No, that's great.
I think what that highlights, though,
Yeah.
is that feeling. Is it highlights the desperate need for us to have a permanent display.
Yeah.
What it highlights is, a desperate need to have either a space within a museum or a standalone free, institution where Sikh heritage, Punjabi heritage is on display.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a permanent display and then there's a rotating display. I think that's what it tells us, because otherwise we wait 25 years since the V&A exhibition to do this.
Yeah.
Might not be here in about 25 years.
Exactly.
So I think that's what it highlights. So we'll see.
And that's the thing for me, because seeing your stuff there, watching how the British stole the Kohinoor, would watch that with Rav's on there, Peter Banks on there, and the work that all three of you are doing. I'm just like, there's so much there now for especially my children. I've taken them out to the Sikh Tour walks. I've taken them to every museum I can. They love their art, but they now use those pieces that they see in their own studies, in their own work.
Yeah.
And you see like Davinder Singh Toor, who you had, Curator, you had people like that who are doing their works and they're using that sort of Bahari type paintings and things like that. But we're only doing it because we get to see them.
Mm.
And if they disappear again, well, the artistic types, might not be used and expressed by artists of today. That's all.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. One question I've got to ask you: your favourite items, and that's just not one item. So you got the exhibition on. What's your favourite item? And I know myself. If you ask me what my favourite fragrance is today, I'll tell you it's a different one tomorrow because it changes. Changes according to how I wake up, who I've had a fight with, how I feel, whatever it is. It's how it motivates you. What's your favourite item within the exhibition? What's your favourite item that you have in your personal storage? Obviously, if it's not something that you've shown anybody you want to talk about, that's different. And what's your favourite item out there, whether in the world, whether it's Sikh related or not Sikh related, that you might not ever get your hands on, but you go, when you see it, you're just like, wow, I'm taken back.
Yeah. Okay. As you say, these always change, right? So I probably I kind of it always fluctuates and changes. I think in the exhibition there are so many. Yeah. Like it's what I gravitate to each time. I think when I go to the show and what I kind of see myself standing in front of and kind of just looking at the kind of detail is probably the image that we've chosen as the title image.
Yeah.
for the show of Ranjit Singh.
Yeah. The one that's outside on.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like for the last 5 months,
Mm.
every time I go to that museum and see that portrait
Yeah.
on the front of that museum, like it just brings a smile to my face.
Yeah.
And it's a just as a picture first and foremost, like it's just so sensitive.
Mm.
It's a very brave portrait. Like it's an unusual kind of composition in the sense that there's a lot of negative space in that picture. There's real focus on this relationship between Ranjit Singh and this young courtier, Hira Singh Dogra, that makes you ask certain questions.
Yeah.
It's a contemporary portrait. We know that Ranjit Singh's alive.
Yeah.
It's face on.
Mm.
You get to see his blind eye.
Yeah.
And what I love the most about that picture is that actually the artist, Gher Singh, there's a story connected to Gher Singh where he wants to get noticed as an artist, and he manages to kind of coax this sweeper in the Darbar. And Gher Singh paints this picture of a dead sparrow.
Okay.
Right, but he paints it so lifelike, and he says to the sweeper, he says, place that picture on Ranjit Singh's golden throne.
Yeah.
And that in the exhibition, that picture is near the golden throne, right?
Mm.
And he placed it, and he said, well, if it can convince the Maharaja that this is really a dead sparrow, he might take notice of me as an artist. And he does that, and Ranjit Singh sees this picture and says, who painted this picture? And then Gher Singh becomes this court artist. But Gher Singh is in his late teens.
Okay.
So he's in his late teens, earliest in his early 20s when he paints that portrait that's in the exhibition, and I find that amazing. Like, because it's just, the quality of it is exquisite.
Yeah.
So that's it has that sensitivity. And also he's brave with it.
Yeah.
Like, he's a young guy who as you mentioned, there are portraits that hide Ranjit Singh's blind eye from view.
Yeah.
There are portraits that change the eye,
Exactly.
make it the other one, how it suits people. But here he is. On top of that, here he is with this young courtier who's responsible for giving him his drinks, who's one of the only people that can sit on a chair in front of the Maharaja. He had a lot of influence over the Maharaja. Why? So all those questions, and Gher Singh is brave enough to do that in such a sensitive way with such a beautiful colour palette. So that's my favourite in the exhibition.
Yeah.
In my collection, it changes. Often, like one of my favourite pieces might be connected to how I acquired it, or who I met. It's often the personalities that I remember when I buy something. Of significance. This portrait of Guru Hargobind is extremely significant.
Yeah.
Because it's early. It's at the very, if it's not contemporary, it's near contemporary. It's certainly around by the time when Guru Gobind Singh's around.
Yeah.
And then it also, it makes you just think about the fragility of that art. It's survived, it's come out here, and so that's really exciting. Also, it speaks to, in my mind, I might be proven wrong, but I think the earliest contemporary portraits that we'll find of any guru are probably going to be only of Guru Hargobind, because that's when that Darbar develops.
It's when the courtiers becomes like a kingship, the sovereignty takes over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, this is potentially a contemporary, one of the earliest contemporary portraits of a guru for us. Another one that just off the top of my head comes to mind is a really beautifully illustrated Janam Sakhi.
Okay.
But it dates to about 1765.
Okay.
And it's predates Ranjit Singh, and it's just this. It's the Janam Sakhis, as you'll know. All of our storytelling comes from those Janam Sakhis. Those Janam Sakhis are the earliest depictions of Sikh art. And this Janam Sakhi is produced around about the same time as the Vardakalukara.
Yeah.
So that's really significant. So I look forward to kind of cataloguing that and researching that and kind of translating that, having that translated one day. And in terms of what's out there, I think I really, really love we had an enlarged kind of blow up of it in the exhibition. Is a court of Lahore, but done by Gus Scherft.
This is where you got the shawl.
That's
and
right.
the things. And this, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So Gus Scherft as an artist,
Mm.
I mean, you can't beat him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just arrives in Lahore in the early 1840s. He sees the Sikh kingdom at its peak. He doesn't get to see Ranjit Singh, sadly, but he sees all the characters before all the assassinations begin, and he understands the relationships, and he kind of sorry.
Sorry. Don't
I'm not even joking, right? But this is an alarm that I'd set. I got a bid at an auction. I'm not even joking.
We're going for sure.
But no, you can leave that in if you like. But otherwise, my phone was on airplane mode.
Go.
So that picture, as us guys born and brought up here, we look at art through kind of Western lens. It's a portraits in oils,
Yeah.
realistic kind of characteristics, but also large scale. And his paintings for me, which have been recently restored, they're in the Bamba fort in the Bamba collection within the Lahore fort.
They are there. Yeah.
They're there on display. Just spectacular. Spectacular.
We were in the fort and we didn't see that. We missed the art Bamba collection when we were in the fort because we were strapped for time. So I'm looking to go and do that again.
You'll have
definitely.
to go back.
No, that's brilliant. We're going to do two quick questions. One is I've recently brought obviously the book at the museum, and I've brought another book which is like a lovely purple book called The Sikhs, which you've had a load of work done in that one as well. Are you involved in any other book publications at the moment?
At the moment, what I'm working on at the moment is a complete catalogue of the collection.
Okay.
So that's been kind of I've been chipping away at that for a while now, and that's going to be a multi-volume kind of set.
Okay.
So that's that's what I'm working on at the moment. That's taking up a lot of time. Is actually just looking at everything that I've managed to find over the years and cataloguing it thoroughly, and and then presenting that basically so people can see the extent of what's been found. Because an exhibition you can only pull out so many things. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on at the moment. Yeah.
Okay. Future projects, future work. What does that hold for you?
One is this major kind of cataloguing undertaking, and then I think really I think I'm just taking it as it comes. I'm really keen on this exhibition is so significant, in our kind of cultural history. Like I'm seeing where the dust settles with this. I kind of want to almost wait till a few months after this exhibition, reconvene with people that I worked on during it, and see how that landscape has changed, and see what we can then reflect on and look at and say, well, what did we learn from that whole experience? Rather than rush into something, is to say, what did we do wrong? What did we, or not wrong, but where could we have improved things, and how would we do things differently next time? What surprised us? What did we learn from our audience? What did our audience want? What do they engage with? How do we keep our audience? I mentioned to you, 67% whatever never been to a paid exhibition, or half of the people never been to the Wallace. How do we retain that audience? How do you give them something else? What do you do? So it's going to be kind of focused on that, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question is, have you got any questions for us before we close up?
Any questions? How did you come up with your name, by the way?
Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic.
Yeah.
We're in the car on the way here to record our first podcast, which is here. So we'd already set it up with two people. We're going to come and start this podcast. We decided we wanted to do something, and we're in the car and we're like, what do we call it? And then it was like, what are we looking at? Well, our guests they're the person we want to focus on. They're the fantastic, and we're like, we're flawed and foolish. We're driving up in the car, and that's how it came. So an hour later, we were sat here going, we're flawed, foolish, and fantastic.
You certainly aren't flawed and
That's
foolish,
it. So,
and I'm certainly not fantastic. So I think you got to rethink that for next time.
But that's what it is. The focus is on the individuals that come on, because we want individuals. We're all in our 40s. We want our 16, 17, 18-year-olds to go, I want to get into that. These lot did it. These are the steps they're taken. So focus on the fantastic and get those people to go, I want to be like them, and then they can bug you.
And what's your apart from car boot sales on Sunday mornings? What's your passion? What really lights your kind of fire?
I like spiritual. For me, it's Vedanta. It's the deeper meanings of Gurbani or Vedantic texts or spiritualism, and whether it's philosophy in Spinoza, Descartes, whatever, Western science. That's what gets me. Otherwise, I'll sit and watch Love Island all weekend. It doesn't matter to me. I do it all the time. I'll sit with my daughters. I'll watch it more than them. So everything, fragrances, toys, whatever. I'm just sad. I'm into everything and anything, and I like that sort of thing.
It's the best way.
And I'm just like, I live for today, because then, you know, we're here for a moment. You don't know when the next moment is, so enjoy that moment.
No, brilliant. I think
that's it.
Well, I think your energy's fantastic. Like, clearly your passion comes out. It drives the rest of us. I think what you're doing is absolutely wonderful and crucial. And like I said at the beginning, like, I'm honoured just to be here and be able to chat to you and engage with you in this way. And wishing you lots of success with.
I thank you for saying that, and I'll give you the money for saying that. Like we
agreed beforehand.
That was a paid information. I appreciate that. But no, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time. From Danny DeVito here to Arnold Schwarzenegger. I really appreciate you coming on Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa,
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.